Behind every wildly successful podcast lies a story of grit, relentless hustle, and jaw-dropping sacrifices. How do you go from talking to an empty room to striking multi-million-dollar deals and building an empire? What do these podcast giants risk, sacrifice, and endure that the public never sees? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden struggles of the world's wealthiest podcasters. You won't believe what they had to give up to get here. From bankruptcy to public feuds, personal breakdowns to fame that comes at a steep price. These are the stories no one talks about. Let's dive in, starting with those who clawed their way up from nothing. Our first stop? Armchair Expert, the brainchild of Dax Shepard. You probably know him from movies like Without a Paddle or TV shows like Parenthood. But did you know Dax's leap into podcasting nearly drove him to his breaking point? Back in 2018, Shepard's acting career was stalling. Desperate for a new creative outlet, he launched Armchair Expert. But it wasn't the overnight success you might think. In a candid chat with Joe Rogan, Dax revealed how his initial investment in the show came straight out of his own pocket. No big sponsorship deals, no fancy networks. He spent months tinkering with equipment, often doubting whether this whole podcasting thing would even work. Imagine juggling an acting career that's on life support, a new baby at home, and a podcast that's racking up bills but not views. Add to that, the emotional toll was massive. Shepard admitted to sleepless nights and strained relationships with his wife, Kristen Bell, as he threw himself into the project, often working late hours into the night. Shepard described it as one of the most grueling periods of his life. He wasn't just trying to succeed, he was trying to prove himself in an entirely new medium. Despite these setbacks, his dedication paid off. By 2020, Armchair Expert had become one of the most downloaded podcasts globally. Shepard inked a major licensing deal with Spotify, estimated at $9 million per year, securing his place as one of podcasting's top earners. Now, whether you love him or hate him, Ben Shapiro is one of the most divisive figures in media today. But before the fiery debates and the viral clips, Shapiro was just a young college graduate with a sharp mind and a lot of student debt. When he started The Ben Shapiro Show, he wasn't just facing ideological critics, he was facing serious financial uncertainty. On The Rubin Report, Shapiro opened up about the early days when The Ben Shapiro Show was nothing more than a side project. He was working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, all while trying to grow his podcast. With no major financial backing, he had to bootstrap the entire operation, often working long nights and weekends. During this time, Shapiro invested his own savings into the podcast, a huge gamble, especially for someone just starting out in a notoriously unstable field. As if that wasn't hard enough, Shapiro quickly became a lightning rod for public criticism.
They're genuine, but they are getting criticized.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the criticism is coming from people who really don't necessarily disagree with thoughts and prayers, but they think that if you disagree with them politically, your thoughts and prayers must be insincere.
His political commentary attracted a flood of hate mail, death threats, and media scrutiny. Shapiro has admitted that the pressure was overwhelming, leading to several periods of burnout. Yet, his sheer determination to build a platform for his views kept him going, despite facing waves of online harassment and protests at his live events. Today, Shapiro's hard work has more than paid off. With over 4.5 million weekly listeners and a net worth now estimated at $50 million, Shapiro has turned his small podcast into a media empire. His podcast is also one of the highest earners in the political sphere, bringing in an estimated $5 million a year from ad revenue and subscriptions. Now let's talk about Alex Cooper, host of Call Her Daddy, a podcast that skyrocketed to fame for its unapologetic discussions about sex, relationships, and dating. But behind the raunchy conversations and viral moments, Alex's path to podcasting success was anything but glamorous. Alex's career nearly imploded in 2020 during a highly publicized legal battle with Barstool Sports. For months, Cooper was locked in a heated contract dispute, fighting for control over her own show. She's openly talked about how this battle took a toll on her mental health. She was in and out of lawyers' offices, fighting for the rights to her content, all while the podcast's future hung in the balance. On Joe Rogan's podcast, Cooper discussed how the stress of managing a podcast at such a young age affected her personally. She described isolating herself from friends and family as she poured all her energy into growing Call Her Daddy. Burnout wasn't just a possibility, it was a constant reality. However, all of that hard work paid off. In 2021, she signed an unprecedented $60 million deal with Spotify, making her one of the highest-paid podcasters in the world. From fighting for creative control to managing an audience that grew to over 3 million weekly listeners, Alex's journey is a testament to perseverance. Next up is the man who's helped millions dig themselves out of debt, Dave Ramsey. But long before Ramsey became the financial guru he is today, he found himself on the other side of financial ruin. In the 1980s, Ramsey was a real estate investor with over $4 million to his name. But when the market crashed, he lost it all, filing for bankruptcy and nearly losing his family in the process. In a heartfelt interview on Fox Business, Ramsey opened up about the shame and despair he felt during that time, calling it the lowest point of his life. After bankruptcy, Ramsey vowed to rebuild, not just his life, but his knowledge of how money works. He spent years researching financial management, eventually launching The Dave Ramsey Show from a small local radio station. With no financial backing, Ramsey used his personal story of bankruptcy as the foundation of his advice, slowly building a loyal audience. Today, Ramsey is one of the most successful financial podcasters in the world, with a reported fortune of $200 million. His program is broadcast on over 600 radio stations, with millions tuning in for his no-nonsense advice on managing money. And finally, we arrive at the king of podcasting, Joe Rogan. With a deal rumored at $200 million from Spotify, Rogan has reached the pinnacle of success. But Rogan didn't always have it easy. When he started the Joe Rogan Experience back in 2009, the podcasting landscape looked very different. Rogan has openly shared how difficult those early years were. Despite having a successful career in stand-up comedy and UFC commentating, his podcast was seen by many as a hobby, a fun side gig that would never turn into a full-time career. For the first few years, the Joe Rogan Experience barely made any money, and Rogan was covering most of the production costs himself. And as the podcast gained popularity, it also attracted controversy. From being accused of platforming divisive guests to facing backlash for his stances on political issues, Rogan has been no stranger to criticism. He's admitted that the constant scrutiny is exhausting, but his decision to remain authentic has only helped grow his audience. Today, Rogan's influence in the podcasting world is unparalleled. With a reported $30 million in annual earnings and over 190 million downloads per month, the Joe Rogan Experience is a juggernaut, cementing Rogan as the highest-earning podcaster in the world. Each of these podcasting giants overcame incredible challenges to reach the top. Whether it was financial hardship, public controversy, or bitter legal battles, their stories are proof that success doesn't come easy, and sometimes the only way forward is through the fire. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of podcasting, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and stay tuned for more videos. Until next time.